Hi, it's near the end of the year, the end of this amazing, interesting 2020 year that none of us will ever forget. And as promised, I want to share with you some ideas and suggestions and ways to look back gently over the year before we begin to welcome and look at 2021. So there's a lot of different ways to do this, to go looking, to go finding, and there's easy and spontaneous ways to do things. And then there's very specific techniques that we learn and that we improve upon. And then there's just looking with a kind of interest and curiosity and willingness to see. And that's really my favorite way of doing things. And it's the easiest way as well. Not much learning to do and just a little bit of trust. So we should probably ask the question first, why do we look back or even forward, really? And it's something that we really just do, and we don't really even always ask why. So there is an answer to that. And the reason is that we looking helps us to see where we are in a certain perspective or in relation to something else or someone else, in relation to an event, in relation to maybe how we have grown or what we have learned or discovered. So all of these different ways then that we see things help us to locate ourselves in our world, and they give us reference points. So the past, the present, and the future are reference points, and we move about the world using them as well, like any other location service in a way. So we could say as well, are there better times to look back, better or worse times to look? Sure, maybe. And generally, we tend to look back at key turning points in life, at, specific times in our life, milestone moments maybe. And so we look back at weddings and funerals, births and deaths. We look back at graduations and movements and any of those times when we change cities or occupations, and all of these different things have us looking to see where we've come from, where we're going, what brings us joy, what advances our purposes, maybe what supports us. So those are all times that we tend to look back. We don't have to have those specific times. I tend to look at things at birthdays, yes. And I tend to look at things, I follow a cycle of about every 52 days and certain seasons and certain planets. And so I tend to look at things a little bit differently, maybe with the patterns of the moon. And I look in different directions at different times of the year. So there are all different ways to do that and different reasons that we might do that as well. We look to see where the changes are, where the changes have been in ourselves or in our world. And change, as we know, is one of those constants in the world. Everything and everyone changes, everything and everyone is change. It's one of the fundamental principles of our world. So for this purpose, we're just kind of looking 12 months into the background. Where were we? What have we been doing? What seems most interesting to us? What are the events or people that have come into and through our life, and maybe how it's been different than other years as well. I know for some of us, we might just be looking for things not to repeat next year. But again, we're just really just looking. I want to pause as well before going forward to say that when we look into the past, we're not really looking in or at the past because the past is not really the past or in the past, because really, where is that? So we have to kind of look a little bit at a few other principles here as well. We think we are looking at the past because we are here. We are looking at something. Therefore, that something is other than us. We are looking at something. If we are here, it cannot be here. It outside of us must be there or somewhere else. Therefore, if it's not here, it must be there, the past, the future, somewhere else other than here. And that's not necessarily true, but it's how we look at things. And in order to exist in the sane way in our daily life, we kind of live this way by agreement, if you will, that the past is the past and the future hasn't happened yet, and that we have somehow come from the past and that we are in some way moving into the future. So these are just understandings and views that we hold. We're also not moving along this conveyor-like timeline that seems to have started when we were born and ends when we die in this linear kind of way. But again, to get along with daily life and the way things are organized, that's what we need to do. We need some kind of a system to live by, and that's what we choose to do. So again, we are looking through time in order to see the past. And better put, we are looking through space-time together. If we were to think of time just by itself, maybe we could see that time is like a thread. But when we think of space-time, it's more like a fabric, a kind of foldable, malleable fabric that can be bent and shaped and given form, and something that can be not only looked at, but perhaps changed as well. Whereas just looking at just time does not afford us that possibility. So some of this is a conversation for another day. It may seem very interesting, it might pique your interest, or you may be fine with just saying, I have enough on my plate right now just thinking about today, and I don't need to think about anything more than that. So, but we'll go on. So to look at, looking at the past, we would want to say, where is it? How do we locate the past? And again, it's one of those principle esoteric-like things. Where is the past? Probably wherever you last located it, wherever it was when you last paid attention to it, or when you last encountered it or found it, that is a where. So the thought where is also the location where. Sounds a little strange, but the moment you think about a certain aspect or event in your past, you can go there, feel yourself there, investigate that, and for all purposes, really almost engage with it. So the past is not a solid or static or frozen thing. It moves. But we don't see it moving. We don't experience the past as moving. We also don't experience mountains as moving, but they do. But they move at a different pace because we are moving and interacting with life at a different pace. Different vibration is best to see it that. So the past vibrates now at a different frequency because your attention is no longer on it. Because in your mind, and in the idea of how you have spent your time and how you have moved across timelines, the past is the past. So it is now vibrating and existing in a different way than when it felt to you that it was very present and very much your now. But we can remake past ideas. We are remaking history by examining how long humans have been around, by examining places where animals or dinosaurs or humans may have lived. And in that way, we are remaking the past, remaking our ideas about the past, and it begins to shift not only timelines, but our awareness and our interest upon it. So the past shifts and moves just as we become interested in it or study it. And we could easily study next week or last week as much as we do 50 million years ago or 130,000 years ago, or life on this continent that existed in ways that we previously didn't think. It all moves along that certain way. Again, most of our interest needs to be in the here and now or the present moment. We are vibrating, living, breathing, existing at a rate that makes sense for us to live in the present moment. So living in the past doesn't work. Visiting, examining, looking at the past does for a little while. And maybe you know or have met some individuals who in some way that you might describe them as if they are living in the past, and there's something about them that feels as if they're not here, as if they are not kind of moving at the same pace that you might be as well, as if they had in some ways been left behind or chosen to remain behind. And so you begin to see that life is changing pace. And for us to remain the most healthy for our well-being, for our health and longevity, and for everything about that, we need to be in the present moment as much as possible. When we think about the past, and according to how you see or view the past or what part of it you're looking at, you might be looking at a playground or a photo album or a reference book or, what else might it be? A museum or even a cemetery. It could be a cemetery of ideas or experiences or past thoughts. But the past is not a dead thing, as we said. It's very much alive. So the kind of looking that I have been kind of beginning to describe to you today is a looking that is not the kind that is going to fix something, correct a mistake, reevaluate a decision, not that. This is more of a casual looking around, taking in the environment prior to moving into another phase or facet or year. In this case, that's really what we are, we're doing it. So we're doing it kind of with the spirit of discovery, with a kind of natural curiosity and interest. And again, that's the easiest way to look at things. No special gifts, no, nothing you need to bring along or to remember in this case. But when I do look at the past in this way, I always make sure that I look at it as a moment that is unique. I don't go there and say, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, that's how it always is. I go there with a uniqueness that sees an individual snowflake, for example, where no two things or moments or events are ever alike. I wouldn't even remember them exactly the same way. In fact, I'm hoping that if I see them, I may have an opportunity to remember things in a different way, maybe with a more open mind or an open heart, something like that. That's what I would like to see. So when I look, I'm not seeing something that's really flat or 2D. I'm looking at maybe a panorama. I'm looking at some kind of a patterned topography. And these days, one of my favorite examples is kind of looking at it from the perspective of a drone with a camera attached to it, as we know we have so many now, but maybe one that can also see an infrared and ultraviolet and topographic maps and things that we would not ordinarily see. So with a different way of looking things. So in a previous video recently, I think I demonstrated or gave you a few examples of looking at things more with a 360-degree view or a wider field of vision than we normally use. And to do those exercises, I still said, sure, let's use our eyes. Let's allow more light to filter into us through the corner of our eyes. Let's see what else we can see around the corner. These were those different kinds of exercises. For this, when I'm talking about the past, that's harder to do. And we have ingrained in us, our mind is very fixed about some things. It doesn't always just say, oh, sure, let's go explore this. Of course, we can do this, even though you haven't done this or don't remember how to do this. The mind is very fixed in some perspectives. So if I were to say, let's use our eyes to look or vision the past, we really wouldn't go there. We don't imagine or allow that we can do that with our normal vision. So we need other examples. In this field, in this more subjective field that I work in and that I share with you, in order to do that, I change languaging quite a bit. I don't trick my mind, but I give it other tools to work with. And so one of the tools when it comes to this is that instead of saying that I'm looking with my eyes, I am looking through windows. And windows is a lot easier to envision. You get a lot more cooperation from all the parts of you that might have resistance when you invite windows. Windows are comfortable. We have windows in our home. Most of our rooms have windows. We're typically uncomfortable in rooms that don't have windows. We know that we are dependent upon light coming in, light being transmitted to us. So we don't really feel as comfortable in rooms that cannot be have not natural lighting. So this is natural looking through windows. So our homes, our personal environments have windows, many of them facing different directions. And when we look through these windows, there is something different to see. And same way it is when we're looking at the past. We're looking through windows and we are being reminded or shown different examples to either simply view or maybe even participate a little bit. So if we don't use something like windows, then what we will see is more really small snippet, something that feels a little bit too much like what you would have in a rear view mirror, just enough to keep you from bumping into things, just enough to see things in a mirror so you can keep going. But that's not real viewing or seeing, looking. So we really want to broaden that perspective. I like windows more than doors. Doors, we have a strong association with people coming in and out, coming to and from. Windows have thresholds to be crossed. Doors are places of crossing over. And so they're not necessarily, we don't always open a door just to look. It usually involves more of an activity. So for this kind of thing, I like to use the metaphor or the tool of windows, and I use that quite a bit. So what else do I want to say about that? Okay, so as I'm looking through at this time of year, I allow myself to view or to review, which is to view again some of the different events or scenes or projects, anything that I like, anything that my curiosity might take me to. Um, I don't make it into an agenda. I don't have a specific goal, but if I had a purpose, it would be to kind of settle things because it's the end of the year, because I want a nice, clean and open slate as I open 2021 as a year. And by the way, I opened that on December 21st. And maybe I'll make another video for you about solstice as well. Hopefully I'll have time before then to do that. So that's my beginning. And so maybe it will be for you. So it's a great time and a great week to do these exercises if you really feel like it. So again, if I had a purpose, it would be really to settle things the way they would make the most comfortable. And maybe an example of that for you, I would say, that way we have of leaving things a little bit better than we found them. Maybe if someone lent us the use of something, we want to return it in very good condition. So it's that way of just making things a little bit better, a little bit nicer. I have a way at the end of fall, when I'm done with my fall harvest in gardening, I tend to put my garden to bed for the winter, for the long winter. So I do things with the irrigation and with digging things up or covering things up or whatever it is. I just settle them down into the best environment that I can, because it's good for them, and so it's good for me, and so it's good for me when I return to that environment as well. So those are the examples that I can give to you. This kind of viewing or looking, it's an activity. It's kind of a combination of being and doing. It's not a passive, just kind of scrolling through the year. And again, it's not a getting in there and seeing what you need to adjust or make better. It's not that either. It's more, we don't want to break anything apart necessarily. We just want to go look at it, settle it down if we can. So another example that I can give to you if you want another easier way to view things as well is you can use your imagination to begin with. And instead of just going into one, say, movie theater, you can see yourself going into kind of like a movie plex, except that it's yours. And every theater that you walk into has a different variety of scenes playing that are related to this year or to different aspects of this year. So you can call it your memory plex theater and see what that's like. Again, so these are just examples for you to use. There's all kinds of ways to enter this. You can begin with your birthday and see where that leads you, or an event that was meaningful in this year for you that began or that changed things. You can begin there and see where that takes you. There's not a specific way of doing this. And I really want to just continue to make clear, as I've said already, that this is not a self-examination. This is not a critique on how you did this year. There's other ways and times and better things to do for this. This is not a look and see how many items you crossed off your list or how many goals you met. You can do that from here. You don't need to go looking or visioning to do that. So it's best to leave this experience be just a little bit special for yourself, if you can. And I also want to say that doing this, looking lightly or just viewing, as I've said, it doesn't mean that you can't say to yourself, this has been a really difficult year and I'm really glad it's over, and I'm whatever, looking forward to next year, or I don't have much to look or to say about this year. It doesn't mean that you can't do that. Most of us that I have spoken with, including myself, have very strong feelings about this year compared to others. So you can definitely do that as well. But as much as you can, if we can stay lighter about it, it will give us an easier entry into this upcoming year as well. I sometimes like to say that if we can end the year with a soft landing, then the takeoff into the new year might not be too bumpy. So here I've given you a few examples again. So this is probably one of the last how-to videos of the year. I like sharing these with you. I like sharing with you what I do when I'm not with you, or how I do that, or finding ways for us to share some of these things together, and having you have other techniques to use or practice or share with others as well. So we're near the end of the year. Things I hope are looking good for you, looking up for you, for us, for all of us. And I will be sharing with you again soon. Okay? Until then, and happy holidays. Bye-bye.